opening Thursday here with Talking Sports with Evan. I appreciate you all watching and listening to today's show. Joined by guest, friend of show. Been a minute since we've had him on, Tristain Thomas. Thanks for answering the call and coming on and joining the show here tonight.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. The bat signal went up, had to answer it. So much going on, so much going on. But before we even get to that, man, you nominated yet again for Best Play-by-Play, WBA, Wisconsin Broadcasters Association. That's big, man. Congrats.
Thank you. I'm excited for that. Stiff competition. I know one of the people I'm going up against, and it was another awesome call. And I don't know who the third nominee is, but going to be some stiff competition again this year. But I'm hoping to bring first place this year instead of third, and take home the actual trophy instead of a piece of paper. So we'll see what happens though on May 3rd with the WBA, the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association. So find the show, Facebook, YouTube. Find on the top of the screen here my new overlay I have. Just look up Talking Sports with Evan, and then X at Evan with Sports. And the podcast can be found on Spotify or iTunes. And throw it to you quick. Let people know where they can check out your stuff.
Well, tossnationmedia.com, and then also on Facebook. That's facebook.com/T on Sports Show. And you can find me on X at the 20 double, and the same for Threads at the 20 double.
Yeah, Threads I'm on, but I don't use it as much. It's just, both Threads and Blue Sky? Is that what it's
Yeah.
called? I don't use it as much as I should because I don't know, but something I might start getting more into. I usually post the podcast and stuff from the show, but yeah, there's a lot been going on in the wacky world of sports recently. The NFL free agency started, the NCAA tournament has started. The Bucks are Jekyll and Hyde, and they're kind of in the Hyde portion right now. We'll see tonight if they can get back to the Jekyll part. Did I get that backwards or no? Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll's good, Hyde is bad, or did I get it backwards?
I think you got it right.
Either way, they've been very Jekyll and Hyde-ish this year, and I had a show when they beat Denver, probably their best overall game of the year. They played 4 quarters of solid basketball. But the reason why I don't think the Bucks are anything more than a second round out is that they can't consistently play 4 quarters of basketball. The fourth quarter has been a bad quarter for them throughout the year. The second quarter went through a spurt where that was bad. The third quarter, they come out of the locker room sometimes at halftime thinking like they fell asleep or something with how little energy they come out with. But it's been a tough season thus far. We can't seem to get our footing with the Bucks, and anytime it looks like things are going in the right direction, we get smoked by Golden State, or we get smoked by Orlando, we get smoked by Cleveland. So I guess what's your overall take? We're gonna get right into your overall take on the Bucks.
And at this point, they are who they are. Like you said, they're very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. They've been up and down, inconsistent. Remember how they started off horribly, and then they got to the hot stretch, and then they had another terrible stretch, and then they were one of the hottest teams in the NBA, and that's been their season now. They're in kind of a lull right now, so you're hoping that maybe, just maybe, they start peaking come playoff time, and they'll be good Bucks all playoff long. But I'm in the same thinking as you. With that emergency meeting between Dame and Giannis, called by Doc Rivers, you know he has concerns about his two megastars meshing, and I think those two still haven't figured out. Okay, fourth quarter, which really plays an impetus into how terrible they've been in the fourth quarter. It's been absolutely fatal to them, but they're really still trying to figure out, okay, who takes over in this moment. It's been Giannis's team. He's won his championship. He's been the man. He's still one of the top players, if not one of the top player in the world. But where do I fit into this? I've been one of the best clutch players of all time. Let's be clear, of all time. Another top 75 player. Who takes over? Who's the alpha in that quarter? And I say this, and I will die on this hill because it's been proven ever since he walked out. The loss of Terry Stotts to this coaching staff, okay, when he was supposed to be a part of the coaching staff, plays a huge role in why Dame and Giannis have yet to really, truly, consistently get it together and figure it out. Harry Styles has had Dame. He had Dame for a long time. He's played with another big in Nurkic. They know how to play off of each other. So that knowledge and bringing in that type of playbook and that type of that type of flavor, I guess, would help tremendously with these two guys meshing, but it just hasn't. It's kind of a trickle down effect, and that's where you've seen the up and down play for the Milwaukee Bucks. And I agree, they're nothing more than a second round out, and even a first round might be tough if they get the Pacers.
Yeah, I, if they are if they're the 4 seed, I like them in a 7-game series against the Pacers. If they're the 5, they're not a good road team. They just haven't been all
No.
season long, and that's where I get a little bit worried there come playoff time. But they're in danger of falling to the 6 seed tonight if they can't handle the Lakers, and I definitely don't want the Knicks in round 1. They're just a bad matchup. Brunson, if you know, and whenever he plays the Bucks, always starts acting like he's Michael Jordan. He starts getting Michael Jordan whistle. I don't want the Knicks, but what do you got? Kuzma, you got Sims, who's now out because of thumb surgery. You got Kevin Porter Jr. I know the trade deadline's about a month ago. What was your overall impressions on the deadline? Do you think they're missing Chris, or do you think it was the right move to try to get a little bit more younger, athletic, and under that second apron?
Oh, you kind of broke up there a little bit. I didn't hear the question.
Do you think it was the right move to move on from Chris and get younger, more athletic, and get under that second apron? Or do you think they're missing Chris right now?
Everybody's looking at Washington. I believe they're what 6-4 since acquiring Middleton. I mean, Middleton's an absolute pro. We all miss him and what he brings to the table. But you're looking at the long term health of the Milwaukee Bucks and as far as the type of team they're able to consistently build around Giannis and Dame. So the heart will tell you, man, we should have never parted with Chris Middleton. But you have to look at the facts. Middleton has been hurt. He's been a little bit inconsistent in being able to come back and give you consistently what he's been able to give you. He's getting older, uh, and what he's bringing to the table at that advanced age with those injuries is not worth the contract. So you need to do what you need to do for the health financially of the team, as well as being able to have the flexibility to make moves to truly continue to build around Giannis. For he's still very much in his prime, but that window was closing. It's not closed yet, but it's starting to close. So you need to be able to have the flexibility to go after it. So I like the moves. I thought the trade deadline was very good for the Bucks. I wasn't overly excited about Kuzma because I didn't know if he could remember how to play championship of basketball, a basketball that even matters. He's been on a bad team for so long, but people forget he was a part of that Lakers championship team. He was a very much big part of it. And his length, what he's able to do defensively. You forget he went to Michigan State. Their identity is defense, so he knows how to get down and get after it when motivated. And I think we've seen that. And KPJ, one hell of a pickup. Nobody expected too much out of him, but he's came out triple doubles off the bench. I mean, off court stuff aside, he's been a very good get for the Bucks as well as Jericho Sims. The guy he's a motor. He's defensively good. He's his rebounding, his effort. You're definitely going to miss that, especially even more so now with Bobby still being out due to that suspension. So I thought the trade deadline was very good. The Bucks did the right thing in getting younger and having that flexibility to continue to build around Giannis.
Yeah, you brought up Giannis, and that window is starting to close. I wonder if the mid range game has been very consistent this year. Has got much improved. Is
Yeah.
that enough for him to prolong his career a little bit? Because you look at guys like Dwayne Wade. He had to, he was an attack the basket type player, but as he got older, he had to change his game. Vince Carter became a 3-point guy. Michael Jordan, he changed his game as he got older in his career. Is the adapting the mid range game and get more consistent there? Is that enough for Giannis to extend that career a little bit? You think?
Yeah, and we've seen him take it more confidently and a lot more than he has in any other season. And this has been work in progress. If you notice through the years, he was taking that turnaround jumper on the baseline. And at first when he was taking it, wasn't very consistent. Then the next year came back, it started to get consistent. Then you're talking that kind of fade away, step back in the middle of the lane. That became more consistent. Now you talk about those elbow jumpers, right around the free throw line, which is really what everybody was asking for. If he could just make that range, he'd be good. And he's making that, one of the, I believe, what, fifth or sixth highest percentage in the NBA. I mean, it's incredible. It's going to prolong his career a bit. Obviously his game is still that explosive first step, that power, that speed, that strength. At some point, that does begin to deteriorate, but this will definitely uh, bring about some longevity. Because one thing you can't teach is size; he'll always have that, so that means he'll always be a matchup problem for someone. But that mid-range jumper makes him that much more dangerous. And when you get older and people don't think you got that speed anymore, and you're hitting that mid-range consistently, then that opens up the lane. He's still going to be able to get to the cup because he understands angles.
And the last thing, Bucks related, and I've been kind of playing with this thought and kind of want to get your thought on it. Last year, Bucks top 3 team in the East. Couldn't play defense worth a lick under Adrian Griffin, but they were winning games and winning high scoring games. They decide that the wheels are starting to come off. Got to make a change. Joe Prunty becomes interim coach. Then they hire Doc. They hire Doc Rivers initially to finish out the year, and they end up giving him a contract to bring him back for this year. Since Doc Rivers has taken over from the Bucks, 55-49 is his overall record. 2-4 in the playoffs. Obviously, very small sample size playoff wise for the Bucks, but 55-49. I'm wondering, and it's easy to say this after the fact and seeing what we've seen this season, because I think coaching might be part of the issue too. Do you think the Bucks would have been better off either A, just seeing what happened the rest of the season with Adrian Griffin as the coach, or B, just have Prunty as the interim coach for the rest of the year and do a real coach search at the end of the year rather than just bring in Doc, give him the head coaching job, and it's not working out like I think they thought it would in Milwaukee. And I know this was more of a Haslam move. I believe the GM wanted the coach who's now in Cleveland twice now. But do you think they would have just been better off either having Prunty finish the year last year and do an actual search, or just have Griffin finish the year and see what happens at this point?
Let's say this: there was no way that Griffin was going to finish that season because there was a mutiny building in the locker room, and this is what I was told. The players were absolutely not jiving with him for whatever reason. Um, Things were said, voices were made heard to ownership, and that was a part of the reason why the move was made. Joe Prunty would never get the remaining season job because that's how Doc ended up getting that job after Prunty took over for those few games. Because Doc, quiet as kept, was who the Bucks wanted all along. Had Doc not decided to go back into broadcasting, he would have been the Milwaukee Bucks head coach and not Adrian Griffin. So that's what I was told. And so that's how you end up with Doc as a head coach. I would have liked to see how Griffin would have done the rest of the season. Everyone acts like he was a terrible coach. The guy was what, 30-13. I mean, it's not like they were terrible. Now, we were not accustomed to seeing the Milwaukee Bucks not play defense. They were winning a very big amount of high scoring games. So I think it was kind of shocking to everyone that you go from this stout defensive squad under Mike Budenholzer to now, well, now we got to win games 140 to 139. It's like this isn't Bucks basketball. So I think everybody was kind of in a panic, including the players, and it ended up with him being ousted. And you got Joe Prunty as interim, and then you got the guy who you wanted all along, which was Doc Rivers, in as head coach. So it, Doc has some flaws. He doesn't like to make adjustments really to the fourth quarter, and by then it's too late most times. This club is very inconsistent defensively. Offensively, and I never thought you would see this with a team with Giannis on it, but to not have that fourth quarter juice when you need it the most with one of the most clutch players on your team and Dame as well, it's head scratching. Um, but this is the situation that the Milwaukee Bucks are in, and they've got to find a way to make it work.
Do you think a lot of that with the fourth quarter juice? Do you think that might fall on coaching? Because I think the Bucks have more assistant coaches than they do players on their roster. It seems like, and
Feels like it.
you see how unprepared they are at times, and like what are those coaches doing? Like what is Doc doing in practice to look this unprepared. It seemingly every you go on a nice 4 or 5 game win streak, and the next 3 games you look completely unprepared. Is that the players? Is that coaching? Or is it a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. It has to be. You can only go out there with the lessons that you are taught, and you are taught by the teachers, and the teachers are the head coaches. And sometimes the teachers, meaning the coaches and the head coach, put out a masterful game plan that should work, and the players are just too inconsistent to really make it work. So I think it's twofold. It's you all have to accept the responsibility for it being this way. Now you all have to also have to take the responsibility of making it work. But as we said to begin the show, they are what they are at this point in the season. You just hope that they get into that good groove going into the playoffs and see what they can do. Maybe they can all shock us and get past the second round. I don't foresee it with the way that they've been playing this season. But it's definitely twofold. It's player responsibility, but it's also teacher slash coach responsibility as well.
I get last year was a weird year. You got Dame in late. Dame was out of shape. He admittedly was out of shape due to not wanting to get injured, knowing that a trade was coming. And now this year, year 2 of Dame and Giannis, it just not meshing. And when it meshes, it's scary good, but it's just not consistent. Do the Bucks run it back for a third year of Giannis and Dame and try to build around that, or is it time to maybe see what they can get for Damian Lillard and try to start rebuilding this roster a little bit around Giannis?
I think it really depends on how they look in the playoffs. If they get absolutely picked apart, dismantled as they have in the past when those two really have not been healthy, then I think they're going to have to take a look and see if there's going to be any value for Damian Lillard because it's not going to be honest. So it's obviously going to be Dame. You don't want that. You really hope that these two can figure it out because they should be an absolutely devastating combination. It should be high screen and rolls. They should be running teams into the ground with those pick and rolls. It shouldn't even be close.
And they
And
did
we don't see that.
Adrian Griffin. Like they did that a lot with Adrian Griffin. And
Yes.
under Doc, they just don't do it.
And you will wonder why, because again, Bucks one of the highest scoring teams in the NBA under Griffin. And why wouldn't you take some of that stuff that they did that worked? It's not like it was like inconsistent. It worked on a consistent nightly basis. So
Not a problem.
why would you not take some of that and bring it into your own game plan and say, hey, okay, that works. Let me do this. And that works, and then we'll figure it out defensively. It's just a big head scratcher.
Yeah, it definitely has been. And changing gears, Tristan Thomas, Tosh Sports, joining the show here tonight. March NCAA tournament starting. March Madness is in high gear. Seems to be starting later and later, seemingly every year, but that's beside the point. After the first few hours of games, how your brackets looking?
Brackets are looking pretty decent. I did try to go for the upset with High Point over Purdue, but Purdue came through. Nobody had McNeese State. I don't care who you are. You did not have McNeese State. Stop it. Stop lying to yourselves. You didn't. Don't even try it. So, but they're looking pretty good besides those two.
I'm not gonna lie. I did spend a second on that particular matchup, but I'm like, there's no way.
Right.
I 12-5s were Michigan falling and Oregon falling, but I did look at that one and I'm like, it's going to be the one we least expect. I'm like, nah, it's just not going to happen. And now I wish I would have hit that button. So, but my brackets overall are still good. Florida's a team I'm rolling with to win it. I just think
Same here.
Florida has been one of the best. They've been the most consistent team all year in college basketball to me, and they're who I got winning it right now. Looking at you got Wisconsin got the win today over Montana, convincing win. Marquette tips off tomorrow night. This show Thursday, March 20th. They're Friday, March 21st, going up against New Mexico. Out of the Wisconsin and Marquette, which team do you see making it further into the tournament, or do you see them both bowing out around the same time?
I like Wisconsin to make a deeper run than most people think. I think their bracket sets up pretty decently for them to be able to do that. There's going to be some tough matchups along the way, but I have them going pretty deep in this tournament. Marquette, I just don't trust mainly because of their rebounding. They get out rebounded because the size differential. They just get too out rebounded. If Cam Jones is not on, who do you go to? So it's just for me, especially down the stretch of the season, they've been way inconsistent. Uh, we saw that in the Big East tournament as well. Um, I don't really trust Marquette the way that I did maybe even last year. But I see Wisconsin making it pretty deep in this tournament.
Yeah, and maybe it's just the homer in me being more like I like Wisconsin. I'm Marquette, and I'm more of a Wisconsin fan than I am a Marquette fan, and maybe part of it's the homer in me. But I just like this Wisconsin team that they're putting out there this year. The defense can have problems at times, and uh, good centers tend to give Wisconsin problems. Athletic centers, hence the loss to Oregon, Michigan, to name two teams. But I like the makeup of this team. I like, and you gotta. This time last year, I was on the "It's time to do something different" at Wisconsin crowd. Greg Gard's been here for how long? And I don't think he's made a Sweet 16 in a decade. And this is their first time making out of opening weekend since 2022. And it's like he he can't adjust. It's time to move on a different direction. Try to bring in a different coach. And I wasn't wrong about it was time to move in a different direction. It just moved in that different direction under Greg Gard. He kind of reinvented with Kurt Penny's help, of course, being named a full-time coach instead of just whatever his role was last year. But the offense is a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun to watch, a lot more high scoring, and they seem to run it very efficiently. And it helps having bigs that can shoot. And I guess I got to tip my hat to Greg Gard, and I'm kind of glad they didn't let him go at the end of last year.
Yeah, and you still see some elements of the swing offense in there. But yeah, Kirk Penny, the shooter, everybody forget about how good he was at Wisconsin. You're coming in and kind of putting his fingerprints offensively, getting in guards' ear, saying, okay, look, you kind of got to get with the times here. Like if you don't have defensive laden players who, are going to get down and get after it, then you're just going to have to go out there and outscore some people, one of the top offenses in all the land. Made the most 3-pointers per game in the Big Ten season. So they know what they're doing. They're proficient offensively. Like you said, defensively, yeah, not that consistent as we're used to seeing from the Badgers, but when you can score like they can, especially in college basketball, you can get away with it.
Yeah, like you got to give Greg Gard credit because he could have easily been like, "No, this is the way I do things. This is the way I always do things." But Bo Ryan had the same thing. They swing offense came from Bo, but late in Bo's career, when he had Sam Decker, Nigel Hayes, Frank Kaminsky, Bronson Koenig, Brust, Gosser, those guys, the swing offense wasn't effective for that group. And he changed his offense to more of a, I don't know, pro style is the right word, but it was definitely not the old fashioned swing offense. And he was potential fingertip away from beating Duke in the national championship game. So Bo Ryan changed his gear. Greg Gard brought it back to the swing because it fit what he had. You got to tip your hat that he was willing to uh, adapt his coaching style, unlike the guy who was overseeing the football program up until 3 years ago now in Paul Chris. So I definitely got to tip my hat to that on Greg Gard.
Yeah, you don't try to make your players fit the system. You make your system fit the players. So you have to make those adjustments. And that's why you're the head coach. You're supposed to be having your finger on the pulse of your team and their talents and their abilities, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, and put them in the best position to succeed. And you mentioned that Duke national championship game. I mean, you talk about a phantom foul away from from a national championship. Ain't talking about that, but but anyway, but yeah, hats off to him. He definitely made the adjustments to keep up with the times and to really put his players in the best position to succeed. And that's what every coach should aim to do.
Yeah, and I hope because obviously you're losing Tanji and you're losing a couple other guys, but be interesting to see what the team and style looks like next year. Because every year, especially even more so than in years past, because Wisconsin always been you're there for 4 to 5 years and then you graduate. Well, the NIL, you maybe have a guy for a year and you have to bring because they lost AJ Storr, who I think he's on milk cartons in Kansas. They're looking for him. He hasn't made an appearance in Kansas all year, and Chucky Hepburn left, and a bunch of bench pieces all left, and he was able to get the new guys in here and get them up to speed and really turn things around. And I think I saw, I did see a stat that over the last like 6 or 7 games of the year, Tanji scored more points than Storr had the entire season. Like, I don't understand that drop off from AJ Storr at all. I just don't.
It was just a weird year at Kansas overall. They were not that was definitely not the Kansas team that we were accustomed to seeing. So it was just a lot that went wrong with Kansas this season.
And then moving on, Packers, they did sign 3 free agents now. Banks, the guard, Hobbs, and now a wide receiver. You look at what the other teams have done, and you look at what the Packers have done. Are the Packers further away than they were last year competing for a division title, or do you think they've closed that gap a little slightly?
I think they're kind of in the same place. I think they've had some needs and they've addressed those needs. So I think they're kind of in the same place. I think you have to wait for the draft to see what they do there. Um, but I think they're trying to shore up their needs because they're really close. But the thing is, and it just seems to be a theme in the state of Wisconsin, you have to be able to play your best against the best. And they just have not been able to do that. They beat up on the bottom feeders, and that's fine. But come playoff time, you're not going up against bottom feeders. You're going up against other playoff teams, great teams that have made the postseason. You don't make it there by luck. You have to be a good team to make postseason. So you have to be able to take care of business against those teams. So I feel like they're kind of in the same place. They've shored up some needs that they have. They're aware of those glaring needs, and they're trying to attack shoring those up to make themselves a good football team. But if you look at it and based on the way that they played and based on the kind of the moves that they made this season, nothing's telling me that they're going to be in the upper echelon of the conferences. That they've kind of still in that same spot that they've been in, 10, 11 wins, a good football team, but failed to perform against the upper echelon.
And I think a lot of that's going to come down to is how do the young players, again, 2 years in a row, they're the youngest team in the NFL. This year I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but they're still looking like they're going to be a pretty young team once again. It is how is your Dontavion Wicks, your Jaden Reed, your Jordan Love, your Josh Morgan, your Quay Walker, Lucas Van Ness. It's how much are those guys going to develop and take that next step to get to that next level. I think that's what it's kind of going to come down to. And I think I'm guilty of it too. We all got wrapped up in what Goody said at the combine and shortly after the season about it, urgency, and it's time to be, it's time to be more urgent, and the championship window's here and we have to act with more urgency. And I think we heard that and we all thought, well, Packers have been tied to T. Higgins. Well, the Packers have been tied to this guy. They have money to spend this time, and they just spent money. Don't get me wrong, but I think we overlooked probably where his message truly was, and I think it was for the players already in the building and the coaching staff that it's time to be more consistent. It's time to play with more urgency, and it's time to show up on Sundays and put belts to what instead of what we've seen when they've played the upper teams in the league. Do you agree with that, or do you think Goody was kind of feeding the fans what they wanted to hear?
So I'm with you in the fact that he was talking to the players in the building. I never took goof saying, "Oh, it's time to be more, bring more fervor to bring winning a championship." I never took that as he's going to go out there and just spin willy nilly. He's never been that kind of a guy. If you ever paid attention to what he's done in his entire time in the organization, or anyone within his position in the organization, they did not go out and spend frivolously to try to win the offseason. So I never took it as, oh, well, we're going to be in on T. Higgins and we're going to be in on this big money player, and we're going to trade for Debo Samuel, even though he got traded for a bag of chips. But I digress. I never took it as he's just going to go out there and now be more aggressive with money and try to bring in every available free agent because they have a name and they don't really fit the system. I took it as, okay, it's time for you guys to step up. We're going to do our thing in the front office. Coaches are going to have to step up, be more consistent, and get you guys playing the best football against the best teams. And you guys are going to have to take that next step, that next leap, that second and third year leap in order to put us in that position to make those moves to be able to bring home a championship.
Basically, it's time for them, the young players, it's time for them to grow up, basically.
Put up or shut up.
Yeah. Now, I I wasn't necessarily expecting a T Higgins because that's just not Goody doesn't trade for players on current teams. He'll trade players away for draft picks, but not the other way around. I thought, and the thing is, it maybe it just didn't work out because I always get I always get annoyed when you see what people sign for. And you're like, well, how is Goody not in on that? Why didn't the Packers make a move on this guy? We don't know that he didn't try to make a move on him. We don't know that the Packers might have talked to the agent and the agent was like, nah, he doesn't want to play in Green Bay. We don't know. And you hear all the time about the Packers being in on guys, but at the end of the day, these guys want to come to Green Bay in order to sign with Green Bay. Devontae, he wanted to go play on the West Coast. He wanted to go back closer to home.
Yeah.
There is no chance in anything he was going to go back to Green Bay. Now, do I wish they would have at least said, hey, Devontae, maybe think about it with a phone call? Maybe. But his mind was made up before the Jets even cut him, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was no way he was coming back to Green Bay. He wants to be on the West Coast. He's still there, in his home state of California. He's with the Rams. So you knew he wasn't coming back to Green Bay. And why everybody had that pipe dream of him coming back, was just, it was really pretty funny to me because I was like, this is not a move that's going to be made. The whole reason why he's not in Green Bay is because he wanted to be back close to home. That's why he played with Las Vegas, and now he's in his home state of California. So he's a guy that wants to be in warm weather. I don't blame him. Football is hard, especially in the cold. So let him go and enjoy the warm weather. And now he's actually on a pretty decent team. So hats off to him.
Yeah. And then rule changes are being proposed. And out of them, there's one in particular I wouldn't be absolutely opposed to, and that's one of the Lions did. The holding or illegal contact on the defense doesn't result in an automatic first down. I wouldn't be opposed to that because I think it's stupid. You have a 3rd and 15, and you hold a guy right around the line of scrimmage or 5 yards down the field, 5-yard penalty, automatic first down. Like just walk it off the 5 yards, replay the down or something like that. So I've never really been a fan of the automatic first downs there. But the other one, and I say this, I've never been a big fan of the quote tush push or brotherly shove. In football for the longest time, it was a play you could not do. You couldn't aid the runner by pushing or pulling him forward. You still can't pull, but the NFL clearly let up on it, and they're clearly allowing it. Well, now that the NFL is allowing it, like I don't necessarily agree with trying to make rule changes because the Eagles are just so good at it. And I don't like the look it gives the Packers, but I don't know. I think it's a stupid play that should have never even been allowed in the first place, but the NFL allowed it. And the reason why the Packers want to get it banned, I feel, is also stupid. I guess is the best way to say it.
100%. And they look softer than drugstore cotton. And I'm on the record as saying I'm perturbed with them because you have a play that they have the Eagles, the defending champions, have become so proficient at that it is nearly unstoppable.
Packers stopped
And
in week 1, by the way.
they did. They did. And they got that to hang their hats on, but it's but then they want to turn around and say, well, we want to stop this play. And it's like, you guys have used the tush push. You've literally used it yourselves, and now you want to ban it. There's no data on it hurting anybody. There's no data on the potential of it hurting anybody. So just because the Eagles have gotten so good at it, you want to stop it? Come on, stop being softer than the Keebler cookie. And then the other proposals, I don't like the Lions proposal. If you don't hold. Period. Like if you don't want to be penalized, don't hold. Just don't hold. Automatic first down, pay the price, go out there, play it straight up. Only proposal that I liked out of anybody was the Philadelphia Eagles, where both teams in the regular season of overtime get a chance to possess the ball. It makes no sense if you have that in the postseason, why you don't have that in the regular season. I think it should go both ways. So that's the only proposal that I liked out of all these to come out of that.
Yeah, and I agree with that one, especially if you're going to do it in the postseason. Be consistent, do it all the way around. Uh, I don't the holding illegal contact, automatic first downs. I just never have understood why it result like a 5 yard penalty on 125 should result in an automatic first down when it's 5 yards automatic. I just never really understood that, but I'm not like gung ho. Let's change it. But the one that makes Detroit kind of look weak, soft as what'd you say? Soft as what?
Soft as a Keebler cookie.
Was the reseeding of, and I don't necessarily disagree to an extent, but the Lions they end up playing Washington in the second round of the playoffs, and Washington clearly kicked their ass. I'm pretty confident that Detroit feels that if it was seeded based off record instead of division winners, they would not have gotten Washington in the second round, and they would be playing in the NFC Championship game. That's probably their thinking, and it's like we don't like that we had to play Washington when there were Tampa Bay, Green Bay, the Rams, well, especially Tampa Bay and the Rams with worse records than Washington, but yet Washington ended up playing us in the second. I think that's the biggest reason why Detroit didn't like it because they had to play Washington in round two.
And that's their own fault for losing. like, like, see, this is the thing that perturbs me about them is that they've had this short bit of success, more success than they've ever had as a franchise ever in these last couple of seasons. And now all of a sudden they want to go and burn the world down because, oh no, we got a terrible matchup on the field in Washington, another division. Well, they didn't win the division, but they get another terrible matchup, and we played another terrible game and got beat terribly again in the playoffs. Who's to say you're even going to be the number one seed again next year? Who's to say that you're even going to make the playoffs again next year? So you want to go and mess it up for like it makes no sense. You have to have something for division winners. They should absolutely be seated where they are. I mean, it's not your fault. It's not their fault that the division has the records that they have and everything else that it gets seated that way. It's not their fault. You go out there, you play the games ahead of you, you either win them or you lose them. But to try to come out here and it's kind of just really say do away with divisions and reseed, it's stupid. Go out there and win the football game, and you won't even be talking about this. Like, just go win a game. You like Lions fans got on my nerves last year because they talked all this crap about everything. And they knew they had a good football team. And when you have a good football team, you're beating teams, okay, you could talk your stuff. But don't be delusional. And that's what they were borderlining, delusional. And that's what they're doing here, being delusional. Just go win the football games that you're supposed to win. Stop complaining about who's seated where. You play who's in front of you. You go out there and execute, or they execute better than you. You either win it or you lose it. You let it go. Let's stop trying to burn the world because the Lions don't like seeding in the playoffs when they haven't had a whole bunch of success, except for these past 2 seasons. Stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's just ridiculous.
Oh, I agree. I'm trying to phrase what I want to say next. I'm trying to figure out how I want to phrase it. So I this season in the NFL, especially in the NFC, was just very weird. Like when's
Yeah,
the last time you had a 15-win team, a 14-win team, and an 11-win team all coming from the same division? It's never
vision.
happened before. And then you have the Eagles winning 14 games, and then you have the Rams, I think, and Tampa Bay winning 10. Like it just rarely ever happens. Like you have three teams in the same division all winning 11 or more games, like what we had in the NFC North. And my
Unprecedented.
is if you reseed things come playoff time, the NBA already does that. And when's the last time divisions were relevant in the NBA? Yeah, the Bucks won the Central Conference. Whoop-de-doo, yay! Like nobody cares about division titles ever in the NBA anymore because, hey, I can finish third in my division, and if the team that's second or first or second in the one of the other conferences have a worse record than me, I'm going to be ahead of them. I think it kind of devalues that a little bit.
Right. And I don't want that for the NFL because they changed the whole schedule to have more division games toward the end of the season for a reason, because they're trying to put the importance on divisional battles and the division themselves. So to to just do away with all that work and the work the NFL is trying to do to make that, hey, these divisions are important, they mean something, especially when it comes to the journey of the playoffs. For the Lions, like I said, they're just being delusional, they're being softer than drugstore cotton, and they just need to stop it.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you coming on. Been a fun conversation. Time flies. I'm just looking at the time here, and it's been 41 minutes, and I'm like, it does not feel like it's been 41 minutes. So time definitely flies.
We
So
having fun.
yeah, definitely. Well, appreciate you coming on. I will let you one last time let people know how to find your stuff, how to find your work, and I guess call it a show.
Hey, at tossnationmedia.com. Toss will be back on the air very, very soon. There's so much going on, so much I need to talk about. So we'll be back on the air very, very soon. Again, on Facebook, that's facebook.com/T on Sports Show. And then you can catch me on social media at the 20 double on X and Threads.
And then you can find me on X at Evan with Sports, YouTube and Facebook, Talking Sports with Evan, on YouTube, and exclusively on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe. I've been having, except 1 week we didn't do it, and whole explanation on why I don't have time for, but I've been having a guest come on and myself as one time solo talking NFL draft and talking about guys who could be coming to Green Bay, names to know. And it's been fun getting people who cover the draft in some shape, form, or fashion, getting their perspective of the draft. And everyone's perspective has been different thus far. And I think that's been really fun to do. And you can find all that on YouTube at Talking Sports with Evan. They're all 6 episodes are there, as well as all the live shows that you watch as well. Podcast will be available early tomorrow morning. With that, hope you all enjoy the rest of your night, and I hope your brackets aren't too destroyed yet, unless I'm in the same pool you are. Then I hope you're done too. But with that said, have a good night. Talk to you all later.